What's up, Lemonheads? Welcome to another episode of From the Yellow Chair. I am Crystal, and today, listen, I know contractors that y'all are chasing down those leads. I know it. I lived that life. I completely understand. But today, we're going to dig into something that some people have some strong feelings about this. It could be considered a little controversial, but what if we could generate leads? What if we knew a source for you that did not include the G word? And you weren't trying to spend all of your money there. What if you were able to, separate out some of that spend to still have an intentional strategy on lead generation that got you off the hamster wheel that you're probably living on? You're going to want to buckle up and listen to this, because I'm probably going to, along with my guest, make you think a little differently about some lead aggregators today. So I can't wait for us to talk. So get ready, settle in, and let's sip some lemonade. All right, guys, I am super excited. I just had to do a little double check for my own self to make sure I really understood, because we are doing great things with Nick and his team over at Viral. They're helping contractors do exactly what I just mentioned, which is manage all of these. I call them lead aggregators. Nick's probably going to correct me on that, but basically all of the places that homeowners can go and try to source a trusted service provider, and how his team helps you manage that. Nick, I start out with my podcast a lot of times with, why should anybody listening to this call care what you have to say today?
Yeah, well, they probably shouldn't listen to me because, of my position. But in reality, I think knowledge is power. And I think a lot of these platforms have really bad raps. I think that Google is getting, potentially worse for a lot of people, and they're looking for leads elsewhere. And so I just would love to educate here today and talk about, there might be some other options for you.
Well, absolutely. And here's the deal. Right now, people are like, oh, it was terrible. Everybody was getting the same leads. I would never do lead aggregators again. I hate that, blah, 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 blah. We've all heard it. But honestly, just like I talk about everything, there's a time and a place, and all marketing works when it's done correctly and intentionally. And so when you utilize these things, you're right. You're going to talk to your buddy who kills it on Yelp. Well, when you come to find out, they're in the middle of Los Angeles, California. They should be killing it on Yelp, right? I live in the middle of Podunk, East Texas. 90% of the people here don't even know what Yelp is. But it doesn't mean that I don't need to at least explore those lead gen opportunities, especially, and I know y'all are going to get sick of me saying this word today, but with a strategy and with a vendor partner that understands the importance of speed to lead and execution and things like that. So, why do we as contractors put so much of our ad budget and our dependency in Google? And it's because we feel like we can at least trust it. Now, many of you are like, no, ma'am, I do not trust anything going on over there. They just spend my money and I can't find anything to it. Listen, happens to me all the time with contractors, but I think that due to rising ad cost, right? SEO burnout, and honestly, let's call it confusion right now between the AI and all the stuff that's coming in. People don't know what to do with SEO. And then just like all of the digital people in our space are like, there's an algorithm update. And I'm like, listen, me and algorithms, I hate algorithms.
Don't mix well.
Mix well. Well, and most contractors are like, listen, I'm just trying to run a good company. You and your algorithms can kick rocks, right? So, but why do you think, it's like, are you like me? Do you just think it's because it's the easy way to launch into advertising is just jump on Google? Like, what are we thinking?
I think it's the most talked about for sure. I mean, everybody, yeah, it's been once again trusted, loosely defined for the longest time. But I do think there's so much uncertainty right now in where the direction of the search engines are going, or the LLMs, where the AI searches are going to pull from, et cetera, that the problem is that these contractors are going to have to figure out how to decipher the truth out of this, right? Because there's going to be, there's obviously always the agencies or people who are going to take advantage of, the lack of knowledge. So I think it's a super important time to, focus on understanding, how things are working. And yeah, I agree. Like, it's a comfort place.
Yep.
I also think like a lot of people just get burned in a lot of different areas one time in their tenure in their 20 years of business. They tried it once and it didn't work, and they're never going to try it again.
Yep.
I think we definitely have to do some forgiving here, because I think, because of that uncertainty, we want to try to, find our place and find that certainty.
Yeah, so I agree with that. I agree that a lot of times people, like a lot of people, they'll call Lemon Seed and they're just like, well, I know I need to be doing Google. And I'm like, well, you also need to be doing Microsoft Bing. You also need to be doing social media. We need to be all doing a lot of things, but you're right. I think it is definitely a comfort space. So I think what I learned about viral, that I want to talk about specifically today is not necessarily your product, which I love your product, but I want to talk about is how do we feel about this myth style idea that those leads are junk leads or that they're just tire kickers and things like that?
Yeah, I think we have to kind of have a reality check in that there's no perfect lead platform,
Hmm.
right? Like, look at what LSA is doing. We all knew it was coming, but they're starting to get into the lead sharing model rather than a individual. Google local service ads are like, no, you don't just get one, now you get four, right? And
Yep.
obviously they're not doing that with all of them, but it's always going to be evolving, especially if there's money to be made from these platforms. I think the contractors, they need to understand that there is going to be the fluff in there. There's going to be the tire kickers. You don't care about those, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
you're not in it for the person who's just looking for the lowest cost. Of course, there's going to be those people out there. It's the 10 people that come through that just need it done. It's an emergency, and it's going to be a $30,000 to $50,000 ticket, and they want it now.
Yeah.
And so if you have 90% of your leads that are coming in that are completely garbage, you can never follow up with again, but that 10% is bringing that, it shouldn't really make a difference, right? I understand you want to be efficient, and obviously that's the point long term, but really efficiency is a really hard thing to achieve right now because of that unknown that we've been talking about.
Yeah. And again, it's very hard to track. Digital things are super hard to track. So the good news here is I do think with some of these lead aggregation softwares, like Thumbtack, Yelp, Angie, Nextdoor, I think it's a game, right? And they all have their own idiosyncrasies, little unique things that suck about them, and the things that really are great with them, for them. Nextdoor, I've learned to me is literally like building a neighborhood, like you're building a community. I think Yelp, like when I look at Yelp and I think of Yelp, now again, I'm from rural East Texas, so we don't even use Yelp. I feel fancy when I get to go to a city that utilizes Yelp, because I'm a review reader, especially on things like restaurants and stuff like that. So I can see the pull for homeowners to go look on Yelp to see what other people are saying, because we trust other people, because we constantly as consumers feel manipulated and tricked and sold to. So we're naturally more apprehensive. And so these apps are actually kind of wrapping the consumer in confidence and like what they feel like are true referrals, like old school, like tell my neighbor, right? How much I like. So these are just digital tell your neighbors
But
type
nobody's
platforms.
nobody's nobody's doing that anymore, right? Nobody's talking to their neighbor. Nobody's going on and knocking
No,
their. We're too busy. We're too staring at our phone,
digital.
whatever.
Hmm.
We're too digital. I mean, it is. So that's the problem and the solution, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to try to figure out is how can we be that everywhere. And obviously reviews are a really bad word, especially for everybody who hates Yelp, because that's the number one
Sure.
reason that they're not going to like it.
Sure.
But at the same time, just because you don't like something and the way it's done doesn't mean that the consumers in the end aren't going
Yes.
to utilize it. So it's like you can say, oh, I'm never going to do that, they high reviews or whatever, but at the same time, if that's where all your clients, your customers are going to get that information, you're just going to be okay with your business sitting there looking like it's in a back alley in a basement versus really showing who you are. And I know that's the branding piece, obviously you guys I know have talked about a ton,
Yes.
why that's so important, right?
Yeah, and there's just something about a good understanding and having clear expectations of what you're getting into. So many people have unrealistic expectations of performance. and that there is just this line of perfection. That what do you mean? Like all my marketing companies are screwing me over, and I'm just like, it's your expectations. That's like eating a salad and being like, okay, well, I'm not skinny today. I'm not skinny, right? You're like, okay, there's got to be, you got to have some expectations here and understand what you got to go through with these things. Well, and I know I didn't really prep you for this question, but what do you think are, like if you had to pick a couple of things that are imperative to being successful inside of this style of lead aggregation softwares, what do you think are the two or three things that contractors really need to have their mindset around, maybe even just like understanding about them, that you think contractors are missing?
I'm going to start out with patience, which, like you had just alluded to, a lot of people are like, "Oh, this doesn't work," and they try it once for a month and it doesn't work, and then they got to pull it out, right? And then they're like, "Ah, no, that didn't work for me," right? I think things that contractors should be patience. And organization on their end, right? Like speed to lead, obviously super important. How your CSR team is following up with these leads, the service that you're providing to the customers, is probably second most important. But as far as the patience piece, I think uh, you know there's a example that got brought to me not too long ago where they were on Thumbtack and Yelp and maybe one other platform. Maybe it was Angie, and Angie was pretty consistent as far as results go. But the first 4 months, there was 1 month where Yelp was at, a ridiculous amount, right? They had gotten a couple huge jobs from, they were 10, 20x, whatever. Thumbtack was at 0, right? And there would be people who would just pull that platform because they're like, I wasted a couple $1,000s this month in this platform. I don't want to do it again. But
Right.
the very next month, it flip flopped. Yelp did next to nothing, and then Thumbtack was doing the 10 to 20x. And so it went back and forth through 4 to 6 months, and really still is. I think that happens with a lot of clients. I think that's why the patience is the key, because when you zoom out, right, and you look, it's just like looking at the stock market, right? If you're looking at one microscope particular day, you might see the stock plummeting and you're like, this is a bad stock, right? But if you zoom out to the 5 year and it is, up and to the right consistently, that's all that we look for, and that
Right.
matters. So I think the patience piece is the most important. Giving the channels the appropriate time to grow and optimize. I know optimize is like another trigger word for a lot of people
Yeah.
because they don't
Trigger
understand
word.
it.
Trigger word.
but I think but it's true, right? Because and back to the other trigger word, algorithm, like these are the things that the consistency that we have to find in these different platforms so that we can as an aggregate provide that consistency, because it's not going to be consistent from one particular platform. And I think branching from what we started with, which was why are people looking for other places than Google? It's because they are not getting that consistency. People, can't spend the budgets they want in local service ads, or their PPC costs are getting doubled, tripled, and they're getting less leads, and they're just searching and they can't find that consistency. So I think the more platforms that you have in place, the more consistency that you can find as a whole, maybe not on an individual platform basis, which is why it's, I think, most important to not just, once again, only find one other one, but have multiple.
Yeah, I love that. So I'm all about diversifying. So, you know, um, one of the biggest issues that we see at Lemon Seed is that people come in and like all of their eggs are in one basket, kind of like you're mentioning, like they're all in one spot and all of their budget goes there. And then they don't have any money to at least give a little love. And so, one thing is sometimes contractors spend so little money that it's wasted. Sometimes they're drastically overspending. And so, those of you that are listening, like this, what we're talking about today is a great way to diversify your spend for new customer acquisition. This is a straight up bottom of the funnel, the very tip of the funnel. These people are falling out of the funnel, ready ready to buy. And so many of you are scared of this because it is about speed and it is about efficiency. And so there is lots of integrations. Again, another trigger word. We have set up trigger words for y'all today. We're gonna have a trigger warning at the front. But on integrations, there are a lot of ways that you can utilize platforms that will integrate in there. So as soon as those leads come across, you're able to capture them. You train your CSR teams to know how to capture, know how to get the lead booked and go out on them. And you can't build a business around the outliers. So are there crappy leads that come through these different platforms, through the Yelps and the Nextdoors and all of that? Of course. But let me tell you this, there's crappy leads coming through Facebook ads and geofencing and retargeting. It's all a crapshoot sometimes, right? So you just have to be ready for that. Well, I love what we're talking about here. So I want to lead down into kind of that same thing. Like, it does matter how quickly we respond to these style of leads, or is that a myth that I've heard?
No, I think absolutely speed to lead is 100% the name of the game. And obviously everybody says speed to lead, but like, what does that mean? Right. And so I think, especially on platforms that are, sharing leads, which is the majority of these platforms, right? They're all trying to make money too. You have to be in their inbox in, 60 seconds or less, because I have people all the time tell me, well, I have a really good team. They'll get to it in under 10 minutes. And I say, yeah, but what if someone else from another company gets to it in 1 minute? Like, your 10 minutes is great, especially on Yelp. Everybody who is familiar with Yelp and the request to quote process knows that 10 minutes is the lowest amount of time it'll show. So great. It looks like you're really fast to it, but that doesn't mean you're capturing the people who need it now. Now, obviously there's going to be the people who don't, but
Yeah, but we live in an instantaneous world. So listen, let me step on some toes. I love to do this. Some of y'all will never survive this. Y'all don't have your owners, you don't have any sense of urgency, and you're not going to require your team to have urgency. So let me and Nick go ahead and tell you to not, Nick, if I speak for you out of turn, you just jump in here. Don't waste your money on these products if you are not going to prioritize the urgency of response. And listen,
1,000%.
if that's not your jam, don't even go over here. Hang up. Like, don't even go this
Stop
direction.
listening now.
Because,
100%.
and I'm saying that because I don't want you to have these unrealistic expectations. Or my favorite one is be mad. Like, you're mad when I'm like, listen, for you to do this, you're over here telling us you don't have leads, which would mean I don't have a CSR that's busy. But now we have the audacity to ask them to work quickly. Like, you see where that dog doesn't hunt here in East Texas. So the issue that we've got to worry about here is you have to have the right mindset, that you're being intentional about the strategy of launching this style of program. And then when you utilize vendors like Viral who help you manage these whole things, let me tell you what, all you have to worry about is making sure your team handles the leads well when they come in. That is your part of y'all are a dynamic duo on Dancing with the Stars, and all we need you to do is follow. All right. You don't even have to lead or choreograph. Just follow the
Literally,
leader.
just literally make a call. That's basically all we're trying to get to, right? We're trying to automate everything on the front end to make it as seamless as possible. And then all you have to do is make the phone call. And I think that's where the, translation can get lost, is that if they're not super committed to the cause, right, then, they're like, oh, great, I got all these leads. And then they're like, but they were terrible, they didn't close. Well, okay, how fast did you call them, right? Oh, we called them, the next day.
Well, I mean, we're highly offended. We're highly offended. And I'm like, it happens all the time. Contractors like, I need more leads. And I'm like, okay, start outbound calling. Oh, well, my CSRs are busy. I'm like, doing what? You just told me no one was calling. And again, this comes from unrealistic expectations on advertising tactics. And so, I can beat it to death. But let me ask this. What are some key metrics, Nick, that we could use as contractors to know that this style of, let's say we're pretty good at response. Response is not an issue. What are some key indicators to know if we need to add more money to our spend? Because you know what happens, right? As contractors, we get 2 or 3 good leads and we're like, Nick, here's all of our money. So how do we kind of manage that? Like, what are some good key performance indicators for these things?
Yeah, I think every platform is going to be super different, right? Your cost per lead for each platform, especially when Yelp is more of a cost per click model versus Thumbtack and Angie are going to be more of a cost per lead model. I do think they should, fall in line with, on an average basis across the board. I think I think close rate does have a lot to do with what you shouldn't come in expecting a really, really high one. But if you are not getting a ton of lead volume and you're not closing a lot of leads, obviously something's wrong. And the things that we're going to look at are going to be your speed to lead time, right? So that's one indicator of how quickly are you getting to them. But two, your overall budget. You alluded to this a little bit before. Are you past that break point of entry? And I think it obviously depends on the city, the area. Like, you can't go out in California and spend $1,000 on Yelp and expect a single lead. Like, it's just not going to happen. You're burning your money. Like, don't do it.
Wasted.
Right?
It's not
Wasted.
enough.
Wasted.
Yeah.
You gotta be near the average. You gotta be at least in the ballpark, right? Because there's only so much business to go around. And an average in California for a plumbing or HVAC contractor might be 10,000, right? So if you just can't do that, then that's not the platform for you. Then you got to go find another platform that you might be able to. But yeah, it's going to be figuring out that happy medium of that you're past the point of entry, but you're not wasting money, right? There's the point of diminishing return as well. So where's that middle ground where we can start off and then, take the ladder up from there once we figure out and dial it in. That's, working. But I think conversion is probably the one word that we would look at most, and more so, like, not just they looked at it, but they actually, either went to the website, had a phone call, gave your phone number, etc., because those are the people who are wanting the jobs. And so that's the ones that we kind of zero in on, okay, you have a phone number. What did you do after?
And this is why you can't just look at revenue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just look at revenue because, number one, revenue is your problem. Contractor.
That's not my problem.
Yeah.
It still is, but it's not.
Well, and here's why I say that. If you actually are getting bad leads and they truly won't turn anything, then you should be having a conversation with who's helping you manage those platforms. Not like this is where I mean about good conversation and good transparency here. So at the end of the day, as marketers, whether it's Viral or Lemon Seed or whoever you're using for websites, all that, our job is to help your phone to ring. My specific job is to help more people get access to your company in general. But if you I would worry about conversion. How many of the leads that came through from any of these platforms was I able to actually convert to a call? Yep. And then start there, then start looking at revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we need to make payroll and, pay ourselves. So then look at payroll. And then I also would look at, like, what is my cancellation rate? And the reason that you're watching those things is so that man, am I maximizing every opportunity? And so you start kind of pivoting a little here and there to make the perfect kind of cocktail to win the day at this space. And then you can hold your managers like Viral accountable in the sense of, hey, this is what I'm showing. Listen, I would put money on this right now. The majority of people at Viral would be so thankful for you to communicate clearly to them what's working and not working on the inside.
100%. Everything that you put into it is going to come out of it, right? So it's like training a new employee. The more you work with them, the more time you spend with them, the better they're going to get. So yeah. I think, it's got to be a back and forth. We're going to see what we see on our side. We're going to see the revenue, we're going to see the clicks, we're going to see the conversions and all of that. But if you're saying, hey, I know this is converting a lot, but the average ticket cost has been plummeting, right? Or something like that. Then it's like, we need to know that so we can pivot the strategy or maybe look at a different platform because certain platforms aren't providing that. There's a lot that goes into it. So I agree. It is, once again, probably another misconception is, I just got to have someone manage it and then I can kick my feet up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Set it and forget
Sorry.
it. Yeah, set it and forget it. So that's why people hire Lemon Seed, okay? Because they're like, I don't want to focus on this. But
exactly.
Okay, I think both of us today, I think our biggest encouragement to contractors is try something different. What if they're currently using these platforms right now, Nick? Like, what are some of the things that you've seen maybe some of your most successful contractors doing? Is it just ad spend? Is it creative offers on there? Is there anything cool that they could do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest nugget that I could probably drop is that you want to make sure that all these platforms represent your company how you want your company to be represented, right? They are a second employee to you. And so, you want to make sure that it appears something that someone wants to, grab off the shelf, right? If you're just another, Yelp is a prime example. You go to HVAC for, Dallas, Texas, you scroll down, you see 7 out of 10 ads are a picture of, a
Condenser.
unit.
Oh,
And I'm like, it's not sexy. It's not. I'm sorry. Why is that setting you apart? You all have the same thing on there, right? So you got to set yourself apart a little bit. I think the secondary piece is going to be figuring out that budget. I think, you can have an audit pulled, whether we help you with that or kind of just looking into what the industry is doing. And in that aspect, you can figure out where the waste is. If you are super under, super over, that's another primary thing, especially if they're spending. I will tell one more quick story here about, and I won't tell the name because I would feel bad, but I pulled an audit for a contractor, and they were in a market that similar to what you were saying, not your California market, right? Where there's not the most inventory, but there's still enough to be dangerous, right? They were spending $10,000 in ads on a Yelp. But once again, in a normal market, that would be fine. In this particular market, I was like, wow, that seems really high, right?
Yeah.
And so we dug in and got the, figured out some competitor spend. And their average spend was closer to like 1,500, like the top 3 competitors. So they were burning $8,000 a month without knowing it. And they were getting similar lead volumes as these competitors. So that's just that's obviously the contrary, where it's like you're overspending, and maybe that's Google that you're overspending on, or maybe that's, a different platform that you might be wasting on. I think that's the point is, it's got to be super intentional. It can't be set it and forget it. And you have to look at everything holistically and try to figure out where all the puzzle pieces can fall.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. Holistically is like my whole mantra, because marketing holistically is definitely the trick to having a overall winning mentality. Because marketing will beat you up. Okay, if you look at marketing by the minute, you'll be like, I hate everything. Fire everybody. Start all the way over. And that's just, you have to look at it in larger time frames, and you have to be more patient. All the things you mentioned earlier. So, well, listen, Nick, if people are like, okay, I'm willing to do this, I just don't know what to do. If you're a Lemon Seed client, remember, we're happy to make the connection for viral. And we do cool things like create cool graphics instead of you stuck looking like everybody else. But Lemon Seed would actually work with viral to help create a really cool strategy that aligns with every other vendor partner that you're using. But Nick, tell them how to get in contact with you.
Yeah. So as far as my email, nick.miller@viral.com, you guys can also visit our website. Would love to just even have a conversation. It doesn't have to be anything serious. It can just be like, hey, let me pull some audits. Let me see if you're overspending in those areas. Let's look at all these platforms. Once again, everybody's area is going to be super different. If they're in the Midwest versus the East Coast versus the West Coast, like all these platforms have different abilities, inventories, levers. So I think it's important to, just once again, knowledge is power. So if we can look into that for everyone and kind of give them that guide, they can either go do it themselves or they can obviously have us do it. I think, the number one thing that we're going to help with a little bit more is on the attribution side. We do have a reporting dashboard. So I think our Lead Cloud dashboard, showing all the revenue, showing where everything's coming from, highlighting that transparency. I think that's something that a lot of contractors don't think about. They're just like, yeah, I'm on it. I'm there. I'm spending. But they don't necessarily see the full picture and the full circle. If they have that 1,000-foot view at all times, it makes them a lot more comfortable in the long term. So I think, would love to have those conversations, and hopefully you guys aren't too scared to reach out. But
Next.
it's a big first step because I put a lot of those trigger words out there. So I know it's a hard first step, but I think that there's a lot of room to grow with these platforms for a lot of clients.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, listen, contractors, if your marketing plan starts and ends with Google, it might be time to mix that up. Let us get strategic for you. There are real customers out there on other platforms that, if you can, and it's the right time for your business, stop overlooking this like cool opportunity and get in the mix there. Thank you, Nick Miller from Viral, for joining me today. Listen, we have a great partnership here. And so, if anyone, we can both connect you to each other. So, reach out and let us know how we can help. Thanks for sipping lemonade From the Yellow Chair, and we will see you next time.